Watch this video before you've started, send this to somebody before they've started, and you're gonna wanna be aware of the last thing that I say because it's probably the most important. Hello guys, welcome or welcome back. My name is Oliver Chase, an NSFW content creator based here in Los Angeles, California. And today I'm gonna talk about everything you need to know before getting into the digital sex work space. I've been doing this on and off for about 4.5 years. And there was a period of time where I was actually making about $10,000 a month. And I've had a lot of people over the course of that time come up to me and ask me, hey, I'm interested in doing this, or I'm making all my accounts, I want to get into this and start making money and, give me some tips and tricks. And every time someone asks me that, I always stop them and I say, hey, I'm gonna spend the next 15 to 20 minutes trying to convince you not to do sex work and keep you away from it. And if after all of those things that I tell you, you still wanna do this, then yeah, I'll talk to you about it. But what I find out most of the time, after I go through my list of things that you need to be aware of, most people stop and they don't do it. They say, thank you so much for letting me know all this. I didn't even consider some of these things, so thank you. I'm actually not going to do it. And I'm always very happy because there are a lot of things that you may not be aware of that you need to be aware of. So without further ado, let's get into it. And if you find yourself after all of this, and you really do want to do this, yeah, feel free. I actually am open to helping people. Feel free to shoot me an email or find me on Instagram and message me. But I do always want to make sure that you're aware of those risk factors and the dangers that come along with it, because there are a lot and they are real. Okay, so let's get right into it. No cuts in this video unless I make a super big mistake. So first things first, I'm going to read some of these off, maybe just go right through them or talk a little bit about them. But first things first. Money cannot be the only motive. If you're scrambling right now to try and figure out what to do with your financial situation and you're considering other options in order to pay rent, bills, or other debts, just stop for a second, dude. Stop and take a deep breath, because there are other ways to make money and make money faster than starting an Onlyfans or a Fansly or a Hidden or whatever else in the sex work space to get cash. Believe it or not, sex work actually takes a lot more money, time, and energy and resources to start than you would think. And to actually be able to have a livable amount of money that you make it's a full-time job. It's not something you can just start posting and think you're going to jump into cash. You can put yourself in a very compromising position doing that. And I do not recommend that at all. So really think about that. If you're only trying to do this for money and make money, this is not the space for you, okay? It does sell, but it doesn't sell overnight, not if you're doing it with the right intention for the right reason. The digital landscape, it does take longer. There's a beauty in building a community, and if you're just trying to get quick cash, it could be putting you in a very compromising position, and I'm just gonna kind of leave it there. Now, the next one is one that kind of stops most people, and that is friends and family. It's in your best interest, before you even set your account up, let alone record and post content, to have the headspace going into this that your friends and family will find out. Not maybe, not if I'm careful enough and don't show my face or my tattoos, no. If you are not okay with the idea of your brother, sister, mom, dad, grandmother, grandfather, any friends finding out and seeing your content and knowing you do this, I do not recommend you get into this. Take a second, pause. This is the video you need to watch. Take a second, pause. Put yourself in a world where your mom or dad or anyone else you care about is sent a link of you doing whatever it is you're doing on camera, and ask yourself, is that something that will have a legitimately negative impact on my relationship with said person? And yes, you can be sex work positive and they can be sex work positive. And you can say, fuck them for not accepting me for who I am and what I'm doing and what's best for my future. But you still have to live with that reality. And it can change the dynamic of those relationships forever. The next thing, corporate or secular jobs. I personally believe we still do not live in a world where sex work is fully accepted or viewed as appropriate in the secular or corporate space. The same way you have to consider your friends and family finding out is the exact same thing applies if you have aspirations to be a doctor, lawyer, dentist, etc. This is not a game, okay? This is real life. If your employer finds out, or you're going to school for a specific industry, you could be completely ruining your chances before they even begin. I hope in 5 years this isn't the case anymore, but I don't think we're there right now. Okay, so the next thing is working with kids. If you want to be a teacher, a social worker, or anything that involves minors, it could be a conflict of interest getting into sex work as well. That might be a hot take, but I just think it could cross a line into spaces that can make employers feel more uncomfortable, and even the parents of those children feeling unsafe for whatever reason. I'm not insinuating anything by any means. I'm not saying you're doing anything illegal. I'm just saying people are much more sensitive with their kids, as they should be, and it could create bigger problems for you than just being fired or not being able to get work in the first place. What if a student sees your content? You already know the entire school will know in less than an hour. It could just create a conflict of interest, okay? Like, do with that what you will, but it is something you have to consider. Now, there's a few things I'm just gonna kind of spout off here because it's kind of like related to your self-perception with sex. Your relationship with sex and your self-perception, your self-image, how people talk to you on the daily while doing sex work, comments they make, good or bad, can and will probably affect how you see yourself in some way. You can very much well feel like you don't have time for your own personal sexual life, whether it's just with you or with others. Consistently having sexually charged conversation with clients or subscribers or stuff like that, you're going to be having sexually charged conversations at all times, essentially. Whether it's comments on posts, DMs on social media, custom requests, messages on Onlyfans, you are selling sex. So do not be surprised that you feel like you want to curl up in a ball and never talk about sex for the rest of your life or rest of the week after doing it all day, every day. Then you have to get up and do it again. You may not enjoy that or like that you have to deal with it. It can be extremely emotionally draining. How it affects your relationships with your partner or any potential future partners you may have. Partners may get triggered with what type of content you're doing or the conversations you're having with fans. They do have a right to feel that way, even if you're not crossing lines or boundaries in the relationship in terms of actually emotionally feeling anything for them. But some partners just have deal breakers with sex work. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've had plenty of people stop talking to me when they find out that I do sex work. And this isn't just being a doctor, you know, this is something that crosses into a completely different space, and some people are just not okay with it. And the same way you need to be validated, they do too. And if they're not okay with it, you know, it just makes things tough. Now, here's something on the side I need to kind of talk about, because this is really important. If you're in a relationship and you feel like your partner's pressuring you or coercing you to make pornographic material and you do not feel comfortable doing so or don't consent, I want you to know that you're not alone and there is support for you. If you're a human trafficking victim or have information about a potential trafficking situation, call the National Human Trafficking Resource Center at 1-800-373-7888 or text 233-733. The NHTRC is a national toll-free hotline with specialists available to answer calls from anywhere in the country, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can also submit a tip on the NHTRC website. I'll link some of that in the description below. So yeah, man, like, you can get coerced. It's very important not to feel coerced or try to coerce others into sex work as well. And that is something that can happen too. So be aware of that. If you feel like that's happening, put an end to it for yourself. It does happen a lot more than you would think. Additionally, if you believe a child is involved in a trafficking situation, submit a tip through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's CyberTipline, okay? Or you can call 1-800-THE-LOST. FBI personnel assigned to NCMEC review information that is provided to the CyberTipline. I'll put that information in the video for you to see. All right, let's get on to the next part. With that, or just in general, here's something that's really important. Just because you're a sex worker and might do NSFW content does not mean you cannot be a victim of revenge porn, as well as be subject to your content being in spaces you do not consent to. Be aware, you still not only have rights, but still deserve to be treated with respect, and that doesn't give anyone the right to distribute your content illegally. It's unfortunately something that will happen, however. I'm sorry, if you start to build traction, you can definitely take steps to get your content, I believe it's DMCA kind of like protected, where it will absolutely help basically acknowledge and find that content and get it taken down or flag it. But unfortunately, like, that's something you have to keep in mind, which is part of like the next points that I'm talking about, and also previous points where your content's in spaces you don't want it to be, and then that could be a risk for people finding out that you don't want to find out. If you're a victim of non-consensual pornography, sextortion, deepfakes, or other form of image-based sexual abuse, please visit the CCRI Safety Center, okay? I'll put that link in there as well for a detailed step-by-step guide. If you require additional assistance, please contact the CCRI Image Abuse Helpline, which is 844-878-2274. It's available free of charge 24/7, okay? And if there's a physical threat to you or your family, please contact law enforcement immediately. Don't take a risk. With that being said, unfortunately, this does happen. Being doxxed or blackmailed is very, very, very real. Is it common? I'm not going to be one to say, but people will try to get a hold of your personal information or make attempts to use what you do against you. They will either sell your information or just post it publicly for anyone to have access to. That's illegal. That's something you need to be aware of and are okay with the possibility of having to deal with. It is not that it can't happen. It's just more common in the sex work space, I will say. And like for Twitch streamers as well and other people. Another thing, unfortunately, there are rare occasions of being stalked. You know, you post on your story that you're at a coffee shop, someone sees that and they try to track you down and find you. It's not common, but it could be. So you got to be aware of that. You have to take extra precautions to keep yourself out of harm's way and maybe post stories or where you're at or what you're doing after you've already left the location. That's just a tip, by the way. So there's a lot of those things, but there's also like other aspects like people really don't think about when they think about the fact of making money. Well, if you've never been in the self-employed or sole proprietor kind of headspace, like if you've always been like a W-2 employee, you have to think about taxes. Business-wise, it's important to understand that if you haven't ever been an independent contractor or sole proprietor, the responsibility of your taxes and finances is completely and totally on you. And if it ends up working, you're gonna have to be on top of your taxes. The next thing is starting a family one day. Do you want your kids and their friends finding out? Do you have kids now? Do you want to have to deal with your children's friends at school seeing something and it causes issues of some kind? Again, hopefully we live in a world where that's not a serious problem. And, you know, some people have the argument of like, if I raise my kids correctly, then, you know, that's not something that they'll like look at as demeaning towards me. Unfortunately though, like bullying is real and kids will, you know, try to use that as a way to be mean. If you're ever collaborating with another creator, then you have to consider the possibility of sexually transmitted diseases. Another thing is, will you regret this one day and want to distance yourself from it? This is one of the most important things. You cannot unpost something off of the internet, especially if it goes viral or simply just does well in any capacity. If it's on there, it will be on there. End of story. Keep that in mind. You cannot unpost something. Once you post it, it's posted, okay? So these are definitely things you need to consider before starting sex work. I hope you guys liked this video. If you want more content like this, let me know. Other than that, I hope you have a great day. And again, be safe and really think about this before you start it. Again, if you've watched this video to the end and you do feel comfortable doing this, hit me up, send me an email, hit me up on Instagram, and maybe I can give you some tips and tricks, okay? I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Until next time.